Welcome to Rocket Ship, the home of epic React Native content. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and in today's episode we have once again a lot to talk about. The React conference happened about 2 weeks ago at this point, and there were news about React Native, about the future of React Native, new packages, new tutorials, new content. So there's really a lot happening, and I don't know how this is actually possible, because every 2 weeks I sit down here and compile all the news, and I'm thinking like, this can't be once again such an exciting week. And then it is an exciting week again. This really has to stop. I just want to build apps and do tutorials, and like there's so much greatness going on in React Native that I'm just getting overwhelmed with all the good stuff. But let's do it one by one and unpack what happened last week or over the last couple of weeks. First of all, React Native posted today, we also want to celebrate React Native turning 10. Yes, React Native at this point is 10 years old. Now, they shared some pretty cool stats here on X, like currently downloaded about 4 million times a week. Usually I don't really like these NPM stats because, you know, CI and installation and yada yada. But anyway, it is very popular. We can all agree on that. They've had a lot of releases, currently 6 releases per year. We talked about how they picked up the cadence and how they improved their whole build process over the last couple of months. And then some general stuff that we all know. React Native is used to build amazing applications, to build award-winning applications. I reviewed once the Partyful application. They mentioned also the Rise application, Apple Design Awards finalist. I talked previously with Ben Awad, who's doing the VoidPad stuff with games. You can do amazing things with React Native. You can do enterprise with React Native. You can integrate it into with Vega OS into like your TV. You can get it onto a VR headset. You can do anything you want with React Native. And therefore, I think React Native really has a bright future. One little funny fact about React Native turning 10. I like to bring this up every now and then, and we haven't talked about this for quite some time, but Simon from 10 years ago actually made one of his most popular videos back then. So if you go to my YouTube channel and filter by popular videos, you're gonna see some of my clones and AI videos took the first couple of places. So the first 5 places are now other videos, or 5 or 6. But in place 7 is still my deprecated building a simple to-do app with React Native and Firebase. Yep, that video is 10 years old. It has 110,000 views. And for a very long time, this was my most popular video, although I was actually doing mostly Ionic back then. So it is so funny to see this. I can't, for the sake of my life, remember writing this code. I don't even know what that editor is. It looks horrible. Of course, I'm super bad at that stuff because that was when I got started with YouTube. So anyway, if you want to have a good laugh, check out that video. It's still one of my most popular ones. I should have just stick with React Native. But anyway, I think I kind of skipped like over the bad years, and now I'm here for the good years. Okay, let's talk about the good stuff. A bunch of things were announced at the React Conf, so I highly recommend you check it out. I only watched parts of it yet, so I still have to dive deeper into this. But most importantly, React Native 0.82 was released last week. This release, as they claim in the title, marks a new era. Why is that the case? Well, with React Native 0.82, they have the first React Native release that runs entirely on the new architecture. So if you try to upgrade and try to disable the new architecture, it just won't work anymore. So this is something I probably preached for like the last year. Get ready for the new architecture, upgrade your application for the new architecture, because now if you're still on the old architecture, you're gonna feel pressure. From this moment on, you're gonna feel a lot of pressure with every new React Native release that comes out. Because they will always say, this is new arc only, this is new arc only. Eventually they're gonna stop saying that because we all know. But you will always know that your app is on the old architecture and you can't use these new features. So this is the final note, and probably I say it the last time, get your app ready for the new architecture. So this is the major thing of 0.82. They have also some other highlights. So they included experimental Hermes version 1 support. Now, this was also something that was announced at the React Conf. Honestly, I'm not too comfortable talking about that because, yeah, it just in general makes your app faster. I can say that. They have some benchmarks here. The time to interactive is usually faster than the starting time of your application. But beyond that, I can't really say what exactly Hermes version 1 is doing, and it's also experimental, so be a bit careful with that yet. They also include React 19.1.1 support, nothing major here. As far as I know, React 19.2 just came out, so that's not yet included. But something that's pretty cool is that they have now starting to provide native DOM-like Node APIs for your components. So imagine you have a React Native view component and you use useRef to get a reference to that view. Now, if you unpack that ref and get the current element, that will actually look very much like you would do in a web context. So you have like element.parent node, you can get element.getBounding client rect, you can call measure, you can call getElement by ID. So you can really do a lot of cool stuff directly on that. And this is going to be, or we will see more of that in the future as far as I've known from the React Conf. So this is really exciting. I don't know if this goes into the direction of aligning React Native a bit more with web. We'll see. For the moment, I just think it's a pretty cool thing that they've enabled this. But React Native 0.82 currently not yet automatically supported with Expo SDK 54, so I don't know how well it works together. You can usually, as I said before, use like a canary build of Expo. They probably might release something like that because the next Expo SDK release will be towards the end of the year, and they usually want to support the new versions of React Native a bit earlier. All right, with that being said, let's talk about more news. So Software Mention released a new version of React Native screens. Usually these are like minor releases and I take note in them, but I was actually following this one very closely because recently I wanted to build or update one of my apps, and I noticed that with iOS 26, of course, everything looks different, but especially the header buttons in your iOS application suddenly had this glass effect in the background, and you just couldn't turn it off. It was like you had a touchable opacity in the background, although it was just an icon in the header. With this new release of React Native screens, they have important patches for iOS 26 behavior. For example, how you can specify the buttons in your header, but also some pretty cool other stuff like support for UI scroll edge effect, which is something like you scroll your iOS application and you have a bottom tab bar. Then your content behind that tab bar will get this glass overlay or effect. And you can set this for different areas. You have support for glassy sheets. You have a new experimental save area component. So I haven't found the whole documentation for that yet, but I looked into like the commits and stuff so you can get an idea of how this looks. And usually in the commits, you will also see the files change and then also some documentation in the code that will probably generate the React Native screen docs. So excited to see this. And probably on the same note, Software Mention also recently posted that React Native screens will soon provide native split views. This looks pretty cool, and the only problem here is that I'm a big fan of Expo Router, and usually everything from React Native screens is quite easily accessible in Expo Router. Now, for this particular thing of native split views, Evan shared that first of all, this is a big thing. This is a huge for responsive layouts, but bringing this to Expo Router might take some time. This will not be instantly available, especially because Evan has to think through a couple of things, how you set up the pages, and he also said that this is more foundational than just a stack. It represents how data flows and more than simply how you push screens. So will be exciting to see what he comes up in the end, but pretty cool that eventually we're gonna have really what he said, a feature-complete version of Expo Router at some point. I'm absolutely looking forward to that. Some more news from the React Conf. Now, the biggest thing that first came out from the whole React Conf was that they are introducing the React Foundation. This is more like a general thing. It doesn't directly touch React Native, although React Native is, of course, part of it. How can I best put this into words? Well, we're announcing our plans to create the React Foundation and a new technical governance structure. That probably sums it up. So, React and React Native were always products or frameworks, whatever you want to call it, from Meta. And to support the open source nature that React and React Native are better, Meta is kind of handing this over to a different structure now. There's like a committee, there will be partners included. The founding members will be Amazon, Callstack, Expo, Meta, Microsoft, Software Mention, and Vercel. So you see, first of all, really big names in there with Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. But second, also, actually a lot of React Native knowledge with Callstack, Software Mention, and Expo included. So this is really exciting because this just guarantees that both React and React Native will have a vibrant community, and the whole future is more secure for these packages. I don't know if this was ever in question for enterprise companies. Probably because many are still using Spring Boot or something, but yeah, it's just a great sign. It won't change anything about how we use React Native right now. It's just good to know that it is in great hands now, and moving forward, these companies will steer the future of both React and React Native. More from the React Conf. This one's from Alex Hunt. Alex Hunt, probably from the last announcement when he announced the new DevTools for React Native. Well, they actually improved this once again. So in the upcoming release of React Native, which is 0.83, we're introducing new capabilities for performance with support for several web performance APIs in the performance panel in React Native DevTools. This will make many React Native devs very happy, because people asked about the performance tools and the Network Explorer. If you haven't used Expo kind of made their way into these dev tools with their own unstable network editor. So now we kind of get this out of the box, and I guess Expo will probably let go of their own dev tools there. But that's not all. We don't stop at the performance panel and that stuff. There will actually be, and let me look this up, a new React Native DevTools desktop app, which will fix some key qualities of issues, as Alex said. This is pretty cool because honestly, yeah, opening the browser and stuff, it kind of worked, but then it disconnected, and I hear Jamin listening to this on his tractor saying, haha, we always had a desktop app, huh? Well, we're going to have one too now with the React Native DevTools app. I don't know if this is going to be Mac or Windows. Of course, the screenshots are always from Mac. But the good thing are no browser requirement, one window per app, refocusing if you're relaunching the app, autofocus on breakpoints, save window arrangements. This is really cool. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Again, not React Native 82 we're currently on, but the next version still. Really cool preview of the new DevTools. I think this will really improve, once again, the dev experience, bringing it almost on the same level as the web debugging. I wonder, you can always use the native debugging tools like Android and Logcat, and you can use iOS and you can launch it through Xcode and check out the logs. I wonder if at some point we even gonna make the native debugging part even better. It's going to be quite hard because these native environments, Android Studio and Xcode, kind of offer the best experience for native debugging, but I don't know if we could abstract it just a tiny level so React Native developers don't directly have to work with Xcode or Android Studio but still get the native stuff. That would be quite interesting. I think that would be something for Evan Bacon to figure out once Expo Router hits version 10 and it's better than Next.js. But anyway, always room to improve. That's always good to know. And speaking of Evan, one last thing from the React Conf. In Evan's talk, he announced that together with Mark Lawler, is Mark not working at Expo anymore? I don't know. They add native CSS and vanilla Tailwind support to Expo for native apps in the future. So in his talk, I think he has a video somewhere with timestamps. You can see that he's just spinning up a new CSS module file. He's writing CSS and automatically the views are updated. nothing specifically you have to include, and then you can also directly use Tailwind in there without using native wind. It's going to be interesting to see in the future how all these things play together, like native wind, and then we have Uniwind to talk about in a minute. And now Expo directly offering CSS and vanilla Tailwind support. So, well, we're gonna see. But once again, great step forward, making writing apps a whole lot easier. By the way, if you haven't watched the React Conf, you can see all the talks, the keynote from day 1 and day 2. There's a big blog post on the React Dev post about all the talks that were given, the framework talks, Q&A, more. So go check that out. Pick the ones you're most interested in. I will definitely have to watch a couple of these as well to catch up with all the other news. Now, in terms of news, I still got a couple more elements for you. As I said, no week in React Native land is boring. Recently, Expo announced the Expo App Awards. This is their first competition. You can submit your app if you've developed an iOS or Android app. You can submit your app and win cool prizes in different categories like App of the Year, Most Creative, Community's Choice, Larger Scale, Most Innovative. I'm pretty sure I shouldn't submit my apps because I would fail in every category, but maybe you or your company have a good application to submit, get some publicity, and also you can win something. I think you can win like a keyboard or something with an Expo keycap, something along those lines. So go check it out. The submission is still open until end of October. Get your app in for the first submission, the first edition of the Expo App Awards. Now, some good content. You can always check out my good content on YouTube, but you know that. And now Mark Rosavi also has some great content. I got some competition here. Of course, I got a lot of competition. Beto and Vadim are doing awesome stuff, as well as many more creators. But Mark's stuff is actually new, and he has a tutorial on how to build a Nitro module for React Native. Mark was here on this podcast before. You know him from Magello, all the great libraries that focus really on performance of your React Native application, and he shares how you can build a Nitro module with this step-by-step tutorial. I think this is pretty cool. I don't know if Mark plans to do more content like that. I would definitely love to see it. I should also watch this because I haven't done this myself, so that would be a good start. And almost at the same time, I don't know why, Expo released a blog post, how to add native code to your app with Expo modules. This one from Jakob Clausen on how you can just use Expo modules, how you set everything up, how you create it locally, the structure, what you can clean up, how you write the interface, how you then get like the native code included in your module, and then how you expose it to your Expo app. This is, again, a step-by-step tutorial on building a native module. So whether you want to build a Nitro module or an Expo module, you now got 2 additional great choices out there. Then, speaking of something more what's going on in the ecosystem, Uniwind, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it's now in public beta. This is what Jacek announced at, where did he announce this? I don't know, all the conferences, it's enough at this point, but Jacek from Unistyles created Uniwind now, the fastest Tailwind bindings for React Native. It was previously in private beta and got great feedback. Now it's in open beta. You can try it out. Again, just like I said before with Expo, CSS support, Tailwind support, Native Wind, Uniwind. We'll have to see which one persists. I know that Uniwind is going to be great. Many people already love it. It has really great performance. But if Expo can catch up and offer sort of it out of the box natively, I know that people usually like not installing another dependency. So we'll see where this goes. But for the moment, this is going to be a great solution for using Tailwind in the most efficient way in your React Native app. On top of that, Software Mention also hinted at a new tool that they're building. They call it Detour, open source, lightweight, and designed for engineers, production ready and reliable. And what does it do? It is about deep links. So if you've worked with deep links before, you know that it's kind of a pain in the backside in general to set it up, and that some of the applications are quite challenging to use for developers. So I think Software Mention made a good call here with building a deep linking tool for developers, because I think this is going to be pretty cool. You can get currently early access, so get on the list, check it out. Also, I like the website. It's really simple, but I like the colors. Great job. Software Mention, once again, great job, and thanks for this. And with that, let's conclude. I think this was, once again, an exciting week in React Native. After all the React Native news, some quick updates on what I've been working on in my projects and a little outlook on a different topic. So this week, or last week actually, I released one of my big clones. This one's being 6 hours. Yeah, you're laughing. Many people are watching this, so if you're interested in this, go check it out on YouTube. It is how to build your own Pocket clone. So you might have used this Pocket application before to save links and stuff that you then never read. And that application was shut down earlier this year. So I thought, let's build it ourselves with React Native. And this one's got really popular. It already had like 6K views in the first couple of days. I don't know why exactly. Maybe because there are really cool things included. So I think my favorites from this one were that we're using like API routes to display an RSS feed. We grab information. We use Drizzle and SQLite data. We have really interesting stuff as well with in-app purchases and revenue CAD. We have like a legal screen, login, native tab bar. So a lot comes together in that video. And if you're interested in some of the key stuff, you don't have to watch the 6 hours. There are chapters everywhere, so you can just navigate around and check out the stuff that's interesting to you. Give it a like if you haven't done so far. Can I like my own videos? I don't know. I will not do this. And you can, of course, also find the whole code on GitHub available. Speaking of big clones, I've also made progress on the next one already, which is going to be the Wolt Clone. I don't know if I said this before. It's like the food ordering app. And this one has been so much fun. I think it's going to be a giant video as well. But there's going to be really funny stuff like header animations and transitions on scroll, a lot of interesting patterns included in that application, like the React Native screen transitions library is used. We have parallax image scrolling. There's really a lot going on in that one. I still have to record the whole thing, and we have currently vacation time here. It's fall vacation in Germany, so this might take a couple of weeks, but if you like the Pocket clone, the Wolt clone is going to be just as good. And beyond that, honestly, I'm just digesting all the news from the React Conf. I hope there will not be any other major news in the rest of the year, and I'm making my content plans for the upcoming weeks because I also want to work more on the mission for Galaxies, on which I already made progress, but at the same time, I have so many ideas for videos that I want to do. The problem is that, yes, I can do all these videos on the packages I want to share, on learnings, on code snippets, and everything. Usually that doesn't directly relate to income. And at the end of the day, this is still my work, and I need to balance like putting out a bunch of free stuff versus actually doing something that people pay for. So as a content creator, that is always something I have to juggle, and I haven't really figured out how to treat it yet. I know that most of my content gets like, hey, this is Galaxies, check out Galaxies if you're interested. I have missions and courses on Galaxies, but yeah, it's sometimes hard to balance how much I put out for free, like this podcast that takes time, social content, YouTube videos, and then how much time I put into things that are beyond the paywall or actually generate revenue. Anyway, those shouldn't be your worries. That's something I have to worry about, but I'll try to keep up the frequency of free content both on the podcast and the video, and eventually also next year get back to a weekly video. I definitely want to get back to that. But now let's talk about one more thing. So it's always interesting to hear that other people, actually really popular people, are listening to this podcast. Kudos, Shen. listened to the podcast I had with Beto a couple of weeks ago, and especially the topic Expo UI came up, and he shared his thoughts on X. He said he's not that much on the different social networks, but he was surprised that people were asking for Android or even web support for Expo UI. And to him, the goal of Expo UI was slightly different, that it's not a general UI library, but more about bringing or bridging Swift UI and Jetpack Compose directly to Expo, which you can perfectly do with their own platform-specific files. Now, many people on YouTube complained about this before, like, why is this not cross-platform? So he shared that is really a different approach, and that this kind of ties into the whole narrative of React Native, that you can do pretty much whatever you want to achieve the best effect. He shared some. So if you want cross-platform, just use the React Native View component. It will give you the iOS, the web, or the Android native View component. If you want pixel-perfect stuff, you would go with Skia. If you want 3D, you use WebGPU. If you want Web Echo support, use Expo DOM components. And if you want native look and feel, then you would use Expo UI. So there's a tiny difference, and I think he's absolutely correct on what he's sharing about Expo UI. With that being said, he also said that that maybe it's time now to focus on more Jetpack Compose support, because Expo UI for Swift UI is in a pretty decent state at this point. I think that will make many people out there happy who have asked for more Jetpack Compose, or in general more Android support. So yeah, just wanted to share this big post from Kudo. If you're listening again, thanks for listening, of course. And he also finally said that it's really challenging. So if at one point you have Jetpack Compose support in Expo UI and you have Swift UI support, it's really hard to unify that and build an API on top that says like, hey, give me, I don't know what you would get, like a text element, and then you get the Expo UI text element. And okay, that's like the worst case. That's going to be the easiest part. But there will be more challenging stuff like a gauge or a switch or some sort of toggles and date picker components that just sometimes exist on iOS but not on Android. And then you're going to run into trouble anyway. And then you have the question, do you fake it for the other platform and make up something? But that's definitely not the idea of Expo UI. So once again, these are at least not my problems, but the ones for the creators of Expo UI. For the time being, they will now include also Jetpack Compose in the near future. I think Beto also said this, that they will soon work on that. So we will have great native components for iOS and Android if you want it, or use a different solution, one of the other 5 ways I said before, to include stuff in your app. Okay, that's it for today. That's it for 10 years of React Native. If you imagine 10 years ago React Native and React Native today, you can't compare that. Like the ecosystem that has been built up around React and React Native, all the things that you are now able to do with React Native compared to 10 years ago, it's incredible. I don't know what will be in 10 years. Honestly, I don't know how popular React Native is going to be in 10 years, but not because it sucks, more because of like AI and everything that's going on and the way we create apps. I really don't want to make a prediction anything beyond like the next 3 to 5 years, and so I have no idea what's going to happen in 10 years. Could be a funny thing to think about with smart minds, what they think the future might look like. So Jamin, Evan, Beto, whoever wants to join me, we could do this in a future episode. For now, don't forget to leave a like, and I will catch you in the next episode. Check out the clones on YouTube, give a like, support as you can, and I'll be in your ears again in 2 weeks. Until then, happy coding, Simon. Thanks for joining today's episode. My goal is to share interesting stories and insights into the world of React Native development. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And on Spotify and Apple, you can leave up to a 5-star review. Because podcasts, and especially niche podcasts like this, are hard to find, subscribing and leaving a review does help me a lot. On top of that, check out my React Native courses on galaxies.dev that cover a variety of topics from getting started to building and publishing your mobile app. Finally, you can share today's episode with a friend or colleague who would enjoy the topic of the show. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, find me on X or leave a comment on YouTube. And last but not least, thank you for listening and happy coding. Simon.